finally, I heard some people on CNBC speaking critically about Cathie Wood. I hadn't really saw that before. They were starting to question her. Maybe she's not as great as everybody thinks. And to me, this was just pure hypocrisy because they treated her like the Messiah. They rolled out the red carpet. They had her on all the time, and they let her go on and on and on about how great her fund was and how low the risk was and how it was less risky than the S&P 500 and how her investors were going to make 5 times their money, all kinds of crazy stuff, all sorts of promises. And CNBC had no problem giving her a platform, letting her say whatever she wanted to pump up her stocks and talk her book. And nobody was ever critical. And now, after the air comes out of the bubble and you can see how bad her advice was, now they finally want to speak critically, talk about closing the barn doors after the horses are gone. You can't even see the horses anymore. And CNBC wants to close this door. I was speaking very critically about Cathie Wood when her funds were making all-time highs. I was saying at the time how overrated she was. I reminded people of the old adage, don't confuse brains with a bull market. There was nothing smart about what Cathie Wood was doing. It was all a bull market. And it's even more important not to confuse brains with a bubble. And that's exactly what people did with respect to Cathie Wood. Now, every time I talk about the ARK Innovation Fund, I also talk about the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust because of the high correlation. But recently, the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust has been more correlated with the S&P, I think, than ARK, although year to date, it certainly trades more like ARK. But the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust was actually up 2% on the week, although it was down 9% on the month, 5.4% on the quarter, and a whopping 67% year to date. From its record high, though, the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust is now down 80%. So anybody who bought that as a store of value, as a safe haven, anybody who dropped gold and bought Grayscale Bitcoin Trust instead, well, they have lost a tremendous amount of money. And that's another fund that I think still has a long way to drop. Not only do I think the ARK fund will hit a new 52-week low probably next week, but I think the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust will do the same thing. I think Bitcoin is getting ready for a big drop. It's been hanging in there north of 19,000. It hasn't really broken down yet. Of course, that's creating a lot of false optimism in the Bitcoin community because Bitcoin hasn't fallen. Well, that's what bear markets do. They trap you in there. They give investors a lot of false hope before they yank that hope away and the bottom drops out of the market. And I think that is going to happen for Bitcoin and all the other cryptos, and maybe it will happen as soon as next week.